Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So introducing tonight's panel, with me tonight is Steve Quigley from the Revere Journal. He's going to be our chief moderator. Myself, I'm Niles Welch with the Revere Chamber of Commerce. I'll also be assisting and moderating tonight. From Revere High School speech and debate team, I have Erta Ismaili. Also joining me tonight up on the panel is Salsabil Mendoza. And Amanda Bonasaro with Revere Chamber of Commerce will be our chief timekeeper tonight. So the debate is going to begin with a 3-minute opening statement. We flipped a coin at the beginning of the program. Candidate Keith won the toss, so he's going to be the first to give a 3-minute opening statement. The first round of questions are going to be put on through by Steve Quigley. The candidates will allow each candidate to respond. You'll have 1.5 minutes to respond to the question. Each candidate will get 1.5 minutes uninterrupted. At the end of the 1.5 minute period, the question will open up for a rebuttal period, and that rebuttal period will go for 4 minutes. Each section that you'll be asked will be 2 questions. So in total, in section 1, there's going to be 6 questions total asked to each of the candidates. When we move into section 2 is going to be a community question round. This section is going to be a collection of questions that have been submitted directly from members of the Revere community. Each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to the question an uninterrupted 2-minute time period, and there will be no rebuttal periods during the second section. And then finally, we will close out the debate with closing statements and remarks from each candidate and asking you why Revere should vote for you. So with that, I'm going to turn over the debate open the debate to Steve Quigley.
Good evening. The first question is to Mr. Keefe, and it's about education in Revere High Schools. What is your
Steve.
open statement? Oh, I'm sorry.
Steve.
I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Amanda, help out. Yeah. We're going to do an opening statement, correct?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Erta. Thank you, Niles. Thank you, Safsa. Thank you for hosting this tonight. Thank you, Revere Journal. Thank you to Revere TV, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. And thank you to the audience. Today marks exactly 6 months since I took on the role as mayor for our city. While officially the title acting mayor, the duties and responsibilities in the role are every bit real. As I said in the outset, acting means action. Some might wonder about the value of 6 months' experience running a city like Revere. Well, let me put it this way. When you swim in a pool of sharks, you learn quickly to become alert and decisive. So tonight, 6 months into my duty as mayor, we are safe and sound. Revere continues to move forward and thrive. Concerns about transition or an absence of leadership were quickly dismissed. As acting mayor, I passed a budget that the City Council approved with less than 0.001% change. We've staffed vital city positions, specifically in our public safety and public works departments, despite the effort of my opponent to challenge every move along the way, only to disrupt vital city functions. We broke ground at a new Point-of-Pines fire station, and we just completed a brand new state-of-the-art public works facility. We continue to invest in our community's infrastructure, our educational programs, and we continue to enhance our youth and senior services. We're almost ready to unveil our new Robert J. Hass Wellness Center. We've had great days and festivals celebrating successes, our cultures, traditions, holidays, and have held wonderful public events. And we've had our share of tough days, where we've lost friends and family, and we've grieved together to remember that we must live and love in the moment. We've had fires, floods, water breaks, and disagreements. And we've had the satisfaction of overcoming all of these challenges through patient and level-headed judgment. Yes, we have experienced all that you would expect in a normal term as a mayor. I've seen my fair share. Plain and simple, I have served you with less than 4 weeks' notice and one hand tied behind my back, and I'm doing the job. My parents taught me the value of an honest day's work. I'll always show up and put in the time, energy, and effort the role requires. You should expect nothing less of your mayor. All of the work of mayor has been done and will continue. The record never skipped a beat, and we intend on playing the music for the next 4 years. I look forward to your questions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Mr. Rizzo, you're open seat.
First of all, thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, the Revere Journal, our amazing debate club, and all of you here and watching at home. I'd like to ask all of you to look at this election for mayor as a job interview. If you do, I believe the choice is clear. First, I'm a graduate of Emmanuel College, a 6-year veteran of the United States Navy, and have owned and operated my own business since 1987. I've been mayor before and have been elected and re-elected to the City Council numerous times. Everything in my life has been accomplished with hard work, whether it was circling the globe on an aircraft carrier, earning my bachelor's degree by going back to school nights, or starting my business from the ground up. I've never taken the easy way out. And in this race for mayor, no one should be anointed. You need to earn it. You hear a lot of talk from my opponent of not wanting to go backwards. It's a catchy slogan. But I'd like to remind you what life in Revere was like if we do take a few steps back. Let's talk about our schools. When I was mayor, our schools were all top tier. We had discipline and attendance policies, and our teachers were respected. When I'm elected, I'll work as hard as I can every day to make sure your child is safe, gets a first-class education, and will address opportunities for expanded vocational studies. And investments in our community included the new Harry Delarusso Stadium, the Hill Elementary School, 3 new Little League fields, and we rehabbed numerous parks and playgrounds. The last 8 years, with the help of Mr. Keefe and the administration, has only led to massive new residential apartment buildings, and I say no more. When I was mayor, we invested in Broadway and upgraded our central business district. Market Basket was brought in as an anchor tenant at a then-dying Northgate shopping center. My focus has always been on new commercial growth, and it will continue to be. I led our community through 2 unprecedented natural disasters that included Suffolk County's first ever EF2 tornado and then the worst winter on record in Massachusetts. We took our police department from 84 to 104 police officers and reduced crime by 20%. With regards to our finances, you deserve financial stability. It took us over 100 years to get to $167 million, and now in the last 8 years, we're at almost $267 million. This unprecedented spending has led to property tax increases, rent increases, and has strained the finances on all of us during these times of high inflation. And our seniors, especially those on fixed incomes, need and deserve an affordable community with many more transportation options, discount days at local stores and restaurants, and various additional social outlets to enjoy. And finally, our municipal employees should be able to come to work without fear of threats or intimidation. The days of having to deal with bullies will be officially over. I look forward to your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Now we come to some questions, and Mr. Rizzo will be the first to answer. What is your position on where the new high school should be built? And you'll have a minute and a half.
My position has not changed. It should go where the existing high school is right now. To put kids down at Wonderland is absolutely absurd. First of all, we'll start with the finances. Right now, the city spent $29 million to buy the land. We're currently being sued by the owner of the property, looking for upwards of $100 million. That's just one part of it. Think about 2,000 kids traversing our city to the easternmost part of the city at rush hour, and then trying to get all these kids into a site while people are parking and trying to maneuver their way over to Wonderland train station. It's an absolute recipe for disaster. It's a public safety nightmare for kids. And so as far as I'm concerned, the new high school should be centrally located. We have one high school in the city. It should be equally distanced for all children who attend it, and that's my position, and I'm not changing from that.
Thank you. Mr. Keefe, the same questions. You need it repeated, or are you good?
Thank you. It's not always about what I want, but it's also about what the people want. And for 2 years, we had a site plan review for the new high school. We had 40-plus meetings, and everyone on that board voted for Wonderland. That was the first site chosen. That was the best site chosen. Then the school committee voted on taking Wonderland and having it there. That was their first site chosen and the best site chosen. Then the city council voted to choose Wonderland. So it's not about what I want, it's about what the community wants. And when we take a look at the best school, we should take on the best parcel of land. We will never have an opportunity to take an open parcel of land like this ever again in the city's history. We owe it to our students to make the best decision. We have one bite at the apple. And when it comes to Wonderland, we lost track of who represented. The opponent was representing the owner of Wonderland just like he did 10 years ago when he failed to represent the city with Suffolk Downs. The same owner got to him, and he flopped, and he flipped, and he stuck it to the students of Revere. Wonderland is the best site, bar none. That's the best site, that's what we should do, and that's how I'll continue to move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Mr. Rizzo, do you?
Sure, yeah, I would love to respond to that.
Please.
I'm not sure what he's talking about flipping. My position was clear from the very beginning. I did not want to have the high school at Wonderland for all the reasons I've already stated. It makes absolutely no sense. Whoever the next mayor is going to have to untangle this mess down there, because thankfully the majority of the city council came to their senses and voted down schematic design. So it's not about, look, we're all individuals, we're all elected officials, we get elected by the public, and we're supposed to make our own judgment calls. And as far as I'm concerned, the judgment call I made had nothing to do with the owner of the property, it had to do with the safety of the children. So, like I say, it should go at the existing site. I'm not backing off on that. My opponent can talk about and make these allegations in 10 years ago in Suffolk Downs. I don't even know what he's talking about, quite honestly. But realistically, when it comes to the high school, which is the topic that we're talking about, that high school belongs where it is. It was put there for a reason back in 1972, and in my opinion, it should stay there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo.
Thank you. And as the next mayor, I will untangle it all, and we'll make sure we put the school where it belongs. But just to point for reference, just yesterday we found out that building the school on the current site is going to cost an additional $30 to $40 million worth of cover work. That is a fact, and we discovered that yesterday, but we already knew that was going to happen. That's why Wonderland was chosen. And I'll get to the story of 10 years ago and his Suffolk Downs dealings. We'll get to that a little bit later. I will make sure it goes on Wonderland. We owe it to our students. For the next 50 years, the only thing that will go on Wonderland is housing development. So if you want it to go somewhere else, your proponent is asking for housing development on Wonderland. That's the only thing that will go there, because that's all he is attracted is in his term as mayor, and he's always going to take care of his guys at Suffolk Downs and now Wonderland.
Okay, so this is a follow-up question to both candidates. Now, let's assume that the site does end up staying at the existing site. What mitigation, if you were mayor, would you provide the city and residents who live in this neighborhood who would have to endure an estimated 5-year plan for a construction project? Either candidate.
I'll answer that. I told the residents in that neighborhood that if I lived in that neighborhood, I would hope that they took my home, because it's going to be chaos for 5, 6, 7 years. The fields won't be replaced till 2030. 2030. No soccer field, no baseball field, and nowhere else to put them. It's not a good option. Living in that neighborhood is going to be a mess. You can't get in that site right now. Never mind 2 schools operating with a full construction site of upwards of 2,000 people coming and going every day. Upwards of 4,000 students coming and going every day, parents and students. It'll be a nightmare for the people that live there. And you know what? We talked about eminent domain. Every single project this former mayor, this city council ever had, he took properties by eminent domain. He took properties when he built the Hill School. He took properties with Harry De La Russa. He took properties at St. Mary's Ball Fields. Every project. So if he does become mayor, I highly doubt he won't try and take properties again.
See, you know, it's that type of politics that people are sick of. The threats, he's going to take your property. It makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. When the project manager was up before the city council, he made it very clear to the city council that no properties would be taken in the construction of the high school at the existing site. At the last debate, my opponent, the acting mayor, said we're killing kids. But apparently, he doesn't realize that when the new West Revere school complex was built, those kids went nowhere, and they were elementary school kids. So I don't know how we're going to be killing kids by building a school at the existing site like so many other communities have done. So many other communities, such as Arlington, Woburn, Winchester, Danvers, they've built right on site, not only built on site, but expanded their schools while kids were still in those school buildings. So enough with the alarmists, enough with scaring people. You know, this isn't what people expect. They want facts. They don't want political rhetoric. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. A follow-up question.
Next question.
It,
That's for candidate Keith.
okay. This one right here. Yeah. For Mr. Keith. Mm-hmm. As mayor, how will you work to improve Revere's education system?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we have to show up, and that's a big part of doing the job. As an acting mayor, I've served on the school committee, and I've come to every meeting. I care about our students. I have children in our school system. My daughter wishes to come back as an educator at Revere High School. My son's at Revere High School currently. I deal with all of these students. They're a big part of my organization, and they've been a big part of my team. I've been involved in our school system for the last 14 years. That's something about leadership. I've spent more time in my 6 months as acting mayor in our schools than this former mayor ever spent in any of our schools. I go to the classrooms. I know the parents. I know the problems. We are far from perfect. But we have a lot of opportunities, and you need someone that's going to show up and do the job and get involved. Not someone that's going to go to Florida every 3 months and spend their time down there. Someone that's going to be here 365 days a year to do the job that's required of the mayor. You need to show up. And we're going to take care of our school systems, and we're going to continue to better our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rizzo, you wish to respond?
Well, my recommendation to Mr. Keefe is to stop showing up, because when I was mayor, the best way to explain how I would move our school system forward is to where we were when I was there. At that time, along with the superintendent, Paul Dakin, we had achieved all level 1 and 2 schools, and Revere High School won the national award, the gold medal from the National Center for Urban School Transformation, the most transformative high school in the country. We received a $3 million Sally Mae grant for our Flip Learning Initiative and started the JROTC as part of the curriculum at Revere High School. So when he's talking about, again, he's not talking about what he wants to do for the schools. He's talking about Florida. He's talking about eminent domain. You know, all these things that mean nothing. My goal as mayor is to give these kids a first-class education. He shows up to meetings, but yet he couldn't vote. He voted present on when to end school last summer. How do you vote present? There's no need to vote present. You vote yes or you vote no. On a strict cell phone policy, I don't believe kids should have to have cell phones in high school. He voted against that. So how is that helpful to kids learning? In my opinion, when I'm mayor again and I chair that school board, we are going to make sure we have a discipline and attendance policy and bring these schools back to where they should be.
Okay, we're moving on to housing.
I get to rebut on that? Oh, rebuttal?
We're going to open that up for rebuttal. That's
Okay,
going to be a
thank you.
4-minute rebuttal period.
Thank you. Well, how do you measure schools? Here's how I measure schools. Kids going to college, graduation rates, what they can do after high school, after secondary school. That's how I value our schools. More kids this year received AP recognition level 3 than ever in the history of Revere. Twice as many as when Councilor Rizzo was mayor. Revere High students received over 350 college credits to attend schools next year, 3 times as many when Councilor Rizzo was mayor. Saving families over $500,000 in college education. What is our job as educators? What is our job as a city? To prepare students for the next level. Our kids are graduating at a higher rate. Our kids are performing higher. And yes, maybe some of the scores are a little bit lower on those metrics. Our students are 35% more high needs than they were when Councilor Rizzo was the mayor. We have more kids that have severe poverty. We have more kids that come to our country that can't speak English. And we have more kids that come from broken homes. We have to educate all of them. We can't choose to take our city back and go backwards. We educate the students that come to our city. We welcome them all, and we're putting them off into the best future they can get. These are the schools that believe in our students. These are the schools that believe in Revere students. Harvard, Princeton, Penn State, Northeastern, New York University, MIT, Brown, Brandeis, Boston College, and I go on. Those are the schools that our kids went to school with this year. 2 to MIT, 1 to Wesleyan. Our schools are doing good. We can do better. I agree. And I will keep my hands in the mix. Thank you.
Mr. Rizzo, your response.
Yeah, we had all those similar needs. I think Mr. Keefe should go out to San Diego State and see if they want to take back our National Center for Urban School Transformation Award, because we had an awful lot of kids doing an awful lot of learning when they were there, going to all of those same schools. But at that time, we had a plan. Superintendent Dakin and I had a plan on how we were going to educate these kids. We even had a plan on how to educate the parents. That's why we started the Revere Community School, to help parents so they could go home and help their kids do their homework. And, you know, you can't accept the status quo. You always have to do better and better and better. And that is what we did during my 4 years as mayor. He can try to smudge that up all he wants and say twice as many kids and 3 times as many kids, but it's simply not true. The facts are the facts. We had all level 1 and 2 schools when I was mayor. We had the top high school in the country. We received a $3 million grant because of the learning that we were doing and the teaching that our teachers were doing. And that's just a simple fact. So if you want to muddy it up, that's okay, but I stand by facts, and I stand by the fact that we need to improve these test scores regardless of the challenges. I'm not about excuses, I'm about results, and that's why I can't wait to take over as chairman of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. We're going to go to the next series of questions, which is on housing and commercial development, and I'll give Mr. Rizzo the question first. Mr. Rizzo, what is your definition of responsible development, and what safeguards can be put into place to ensure infrastructure is not overburdened?
Well, this is something I've been talking about throughout the entire campaign. Controlled economic development. When I was mayor, we focused primarily on commercial growth. There was one residential component that was part of our plan, and that was the Wonderland TOD project that was started under Mayor Tom Ambrosino. It was a great project, and I stand by it. And any residential development that was coming out of the ground at that time was as a result of the work that we did with Tom Ambrosino. What we've seen now over the last 8 years has just been extraordinary. Our services have not kept up with the growth of our city. About a year or 2 ago, I know the administration was celebrating the fact that we had the fastest growing city in the Commonwealth, which I ask myself all the time, how does that benefit us? How does it benefit the people that live in our neighborhoods? We're the fastest growing. What does that even mean? As far as I'm concerned, if you want to be the fastest growing, you have to do it responsibly. You have to do it with services that coincide with the growth. Right now, our services absolutely do not coincide with our growth. So any mitigation that's done before any project is considered in this city going forward. That mitigation is going to be done prior to that project being approved, not afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keith, do you need the question, or are you good?
I'd love to answer the question.
No. Do you need it read?
Pardon me?
You don't need it read.
You can read it, please.
Okay.
I got the question. Okay,
Okay.
great. As far as development, I agree. I understand there's a lot of frustration out there when it comes to overdevelopment. And there's a lot of frustration when there's no balance with commercial development. But my opponent likes to talk the talk, but he doesn't walk the walk. He was for it before he was against it. In 2015, in 2013, he hosted summits to not just bring out-of-town developers, out-of-state developers, and out-of-country developers that were only proposing housing. He just mentioned Wonderland TOD. Earlier, we heard Wonderland wouldn't be housing. He just said it again. Here's the proposals and projects that Dan Rizzo was supportive with were 100% residential. Vanguard, Rumney Flats, Quarry Site, Roseland, North Revere, Elliott on the Ocean, Beach House, Ocean 650. All of these, 1,500 to 2,000 units. Not one piece of commercial development. Not one. But when we talked about real development in our community, the largest commercial development in our city's history is at Suffolk Downs. Dan Rizzo attended none of the mitigation meetings, not one, because he lost his election and disappeared, and then decided 2 years later to come back again. And then he's doing it again. And he'll lose and disappear again. He didn't attend one. 50% commercials going down at Suffolk Downs. That's the largest commercial development in our city's history and will be the largest commercial development in our city's history. And he chose not to attend. So he doesn't care about development. He just cares about himself. Simple as that.
Thank you. Mr. Rizzo, do you want to respond?
You know, it's funny.
Please.
It's funny how he brings up some of these projects. He's living in an alternative universe. I have no idea what he's talking about. Beach House. You know, these things, I have a document here, and it's been online. I'll put it up again. It was a request for a 2-year moratorium on all large-scale residential development back in 2015, but his predecessor, who's supporting him wholeheartedly, ignored it, and what we see now is what we have. You know, when it comes to Suffolk Downs, I was the sole no vote at Suffolk Downs because the city did not do its due diligence. That's the reason we found ourselves in a big problem with respect to the biolab. We've got 10,000 residential apartment units that will be combined with Revere and East Boston. And by the way, if you look at the mitigation that East Boston got, there is zero comparison to what Revere got. We got absolutely nothing. So if you want to represent the city in a way that actually represents the people, you have to do your due diligence. Unfortunately, this city couldn't wait to, to vote yes because, they felt as though that we needed to get more housing out of the ground. We couldn't get it up fast enough during the entire time over the last 8 years that they've been in charge. So why not vote yes and get even more? So, I proposed a moratorium. I am not for residential development. We've always focused on commercial growth, and that will continue to be my focus.
You have to show up. To do your due diligence, you have to show up to the meeting. He didn't show up to a meeting on the Suffolk Downs redevelopment. Not one single meeting. For 6 months we met. We did our due diligence. The council voted in favor of it almost unanimously. Okay? That's due diligence. He didn't show up. He took his ball and ran home. And then when we talk about tech jobs, life science, those are such scary jobs. Those are the future employment of our students that go to the robotics schools in our system. Those are the kids that are going to make $200,000 a year when they come out of college. Those are bad jobs and bad developments. Tech, life safety, are you kidding me? That's the stuff that we want. That's the stuff we begged for. He begged for racetracks. He begged for casinos. He begged for slot parlors. All he wanted was casinos and slot parlors and gambling. That's all you begged for. Because for 4 years you spent your entire administration chasing down a corrupt casino and failed and lost and cost the city millions of dollars. Millions of dollars.
Mr. Rizzo.
So when I say we didn't do our due diligence, there's a reason we spent months talking about the bio lab and why we were handcuffed with respect to the developer and what could and couldn't go there. We spent months talking about it because, again, the city didn't do its due diligence. When he talks about not showing up to meetings, I'm not sure what meetings he's talking about. Whenever the developer comes before the city council, he lays out his plans there. I don't have to show up at the developer's house with muffins every morning to find out what he's doing. I mean, this is absolutely, again, just trying to spin the fact that the city did not do our due diligence when it came to mitigation and came to understanding what they could and couldn't build. 4,000 residential units. They're talking about commercial development at this site. They talked about it up at Roseland. And what did we get? Because we had no mitigation up there. You learn from lessons. And unfortunately, the city did not learn its lesson. So we, again, are at the behest of the developer, and it's going to take somebody strong to deal with them. When you're taking money from real estate developers, from high-end donors, I don't know how you can do that.
We're going to go on to another question, and this is for Mr. Keith's going to start it off. Is given inflation and the rising cost of living, what would you say to homeowners in Revere that are concerned about property taxes and utility expenses consistently increasing?
Yes, it's real. It's real for all of us. I'm a homeowner. I've just reduced my wages by becoming the mayor of our city, and I have a family of 4, and I know what property taxes are like. I pay them just like you, my water bills. I don't have a home in Florida. But what I will say is, just recently talking about community mitigation, working on an aggregate agreement to buy energy in bulk and try and save our community money. When it comes to taxes and inflation, we just released a budget. General government spending went down. In an inflationary period of over 8%, I reduced general government spending by 3%. Do the math. It's almost impossible. If you did our budget via inflation, we saved the citizens millions. Our taxes aren't going up. In my administration, we're going to try and do our best to level fund our taxes and make sure the property owners don't have to burden it, while continuing to have smart growth, so we can offset that on you, especially our seniors. I am going to increase our senior tax exemption, but that's not going to happen by sitting idly. That's not going to happen by moratoriums. That's going to happen by having smart growth. Water and sewer rates under Councilor Rizzo skyrocketed almost 20% in his 4-year term. His taxes went up 4 years in a row. They did go up. Whether he says they did. That's the fact. And he also had to raid the rainy day fund twice to balance his budget. You want to talk about saving money? The money that he lost, $2 million in idle accounts that he had unaccounted for, and then all of our city's free cash sat in non-interest-bearing accounts.
Thank you.
I have gained more interest in the last 6 months than he did in the entire term as mayor.
Thank you very much.
That's saving money.
So, Mr. Rizzo, the same question?
Yeah, same question, correct?
Yes.
The budget has gone in the last 8 years from $167 million to almost $267 million. You ask why people's property taxes are up. You ask why people's rents are up. You know, I talk to people every day. They say their mortgage payment keeps going up. You know why? Because their property taxes are going up. And the spending needs to stop. For another $100 million, is there anybody in this city that thinks they're getting more services or better services than they got 8 years ago? I doubt it. The trash is still getting picked up once a week. The streets are still getting swept the same amount of times. You know, you don't need to be a mathematician to understand that $100 million in 8 years has to come from somewhere. You know where it comes from? It comes from the taxpayers. So, you know, again, to try to talk in an election year about, oh, I reduced the budget by 3%, he was part and parcel to the $100 million increases that we've seen over the last 8 years, and that, I suppose, is why the former mayor is so actively involved in his campaign. He wants to see that spending continue. I want to see it stop.
Thank you. Now we're going to open it up for a rebuttal period of 4 minutes. A rebuttal period for 4 minutes. Mr. Keith.
Rebuttal, sure. Thank you. 14.1 tax rate under Dan Rizzo, 9.4 under Keith. I'm not sure. That's the math. But yes, we've grown. And I will say net school spending dictates a lot of what your budget has. Net school spending, you have to spend, just so he knows, teach him about the budget. Every student, you have to spend a certain amount by the state. So of that extra $100 million, a majority of that went into the schools, and the majority of that was given right back by the state. It wasn't put on the burden of you. Okay? But again, I want to reiterate the fact. Your money, not mine, your free cash, the millions of dollars we certify each year, the millions of dollars I'm going to certify again this year, is sitting now in interest-bearing accounts generating millions of dollars. When Dan Rizzo was mayor, he kept them in non-interest-bearing accounts, laying idle. Would you do that with your money? Of course not. We've generated over $3 million in just the last few years. I know that you hate the former mayor. That's between you and him. He seems to own space in your head, and I have to continue to remind him, I'm Patrick Keefe. I don't know why. That's so hard. But 14-1 and 9-4, that's the numbers. And again, water and sewer rates went up 20% during his administration. 20%. You can't hide from those numbers, Dan.
Mr. Rizzo, your response.
So, okay, somehow he's trying to say that water and sewer rates and taxes were higher when I was mayor. That's just amazing to me. You know, I don't know which residents you've been talking to, but people are not happy with what's been going on in this city. We have 4,000 additional housing units that has done zero for the taxpayer. It was supposed to be helpful, at least that's what we were told. You have all this overcrowding, the overcrowding in our schools, the overcrowding in our roadways, all the inconvenience, people trying to park in their neighborhoods. And what have we got in return for it? Nothing. We have higher taxes, we have higher water rates. We sit around and think about how are we going to continue to grow and build in this city. That's not what I want to be doing when I'm in that mayor's office. I want smart growth, and I want growth that's going to be commercially based, and it's going to have services that are going to support it. So he's throwing out numbers here to try to muddy the waters and talk about how good we have it. The reality is there's $100 million that the budget's increased in the last 8 years. It took us 100 years to get to 167 million. If you look at it, 267 or 262 million dollars now, it's not sustainable, and the people deserve better.
Okay, we have 1 minute left in this question. Mr. Keefe, do you have anything to respond on that?
On that? Yeah, he voted on that budget. He voted on it. And, you know, we did talk about inflation to begin this. How much has insurance gone up over the last 4 years? How much has insurance gone up in the last 8 years, Dan? You do insurance? My homeowner's insurance almost doubled in the last 4 years. Our taxes haven't. Okay? So we know the cost of living has gone up. We have to do our best to mitigate it. I'm just going to use it again, 20%. Ours went up 1%, 2%. If we have another 4 years of Dan, we're going to have 25, 30% increases on those home costs. But we're going to have a good mayor. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Not Brian Arrigo. Patrick Keefe will take care of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. We're going to move on to the next set of questions. These questions are going to revolve around law enforcement and city resources. The first question is going to be for Mr. Rizzo. Mr. Rizzo, what does the term policing in the 21st century mean to you? What might this look like for our officers and for our residents of our community?
Well, policing in the 21st century, really hasn't changed in my mind from where it's always been. We're a nation of laws, and we're a city of law and order. I support our police department wholeheartedly. They've got a very, very difficult job to do, especially in today's climate. There's a lot of chatter about defunding the police. There's a lot of chatter about police brutality. I've always been a believer in training for our officers, giving them the equipment they need, giving them the support that they need, and giving them a lifestyle that's conducive to what they do. That's why I am a big believer and supporter of a 4-and-4 schedule for the police department if I get elected mayor. And we're going to make sure that our police officers have all the resources and tools they need to, to take care of our community, to keep our neighborhoods safe, and make sure that families feel safe in their neighborhoods. My opponent likes to talk about statistics. They're just not real. A lot of crimes are not reported. A lot of arrests are not being made. So those statistics can be drastically skewed. The reality is I walk through neighborhoods, people are nervous, people are not happy with what's going on in our streets. We need to return to a proactive police department, not a reactive one.
Thank you. Mr. Keefe, your response.
Thank you. It's scary when a person that wants to be mayor says policing hasn't changed. Even the police officers that support him know that policing has changed. Everything changes, and we have to change with it. We have a good police department. We really do. What really hurts our police department is every 4 years, every 8 years, someone that wants to be mayor trots around a couple guys and says, I'm going to make you the next chief, I'm going to make you the next XO, and all that does is discounts the 115 or 110 police officers that are in the room and the current chief. It sends a confusing message to the troops. It's really lacking extremely poor leadership. I vowed not to put politics ahead of policing, and I haven't done that. My colleague over here, Councilor Rizzo, trots around guys the streets and tells us everyone how bad it is, but these guys think they're going to be the next chief. That's not how you run a police department. We have to keep our politics out of the police department. We need to support them. We need to give them the reinforcement. Yes, I agree. It's hard to get staff these days, and I would be in favor of going with the 4 and 4 if that helps get our numbers up to where they need to be. I'm 100% in favor of that. But I'm going to support my chief, and I'm going to support whoever is the chief. We're going to pick the best and the brightest to be our chief. They're not going to come knocking doors with me. That's not going to ever happen, ever.
Okay, thank you both. We're now going to open it up for a 4-minute rebuttal period. Mr. Rizzo, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would love to respond. I know that Mr. Keefe is disappointed that so many members of law enforcement support my candidacy. I can't help that. Where he comes up with the promises to appoint a chief, I wish he would let me know where that information came from. See, this is what I'm talking about. You can't just spit stuff out and have no basis for it. You can't spit stuff out to the public and not be able to back up your comments. Okay, it's easy to stand here for 90 minutes and say whatever makes sense to them at the time, not having to back it up afterwards. Okay, members of law enforcement are supporting me because they haven't been supported for the last 8 years, and I plan on supporting them so they support our residents and they support our neighbors. And for him to make a comment because people are out knocking doors with me, or people are out holding signs with me, or people come to my events is just outrageous. You know, people support candidates for different reasons. Fortunately, I've got members of law enforcement that support me because they know that I have their back. Thank you.
He did it, but this is the truth. Dan Rizzo really discounts your intelligence. He did it when he became the mayor the last time. He brought in his chief, paid off the former chief to the tune of a few $100,000 without his contract being finished, demoted him, paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars to get his own chief, the same chief that was campaigning with him, and he's going to try to do it again. He really discounts your intelligence. History has a funny way of repeating itself. Thankfully, it won't happen this time. We're not going to let that happen.
Thank you. I'd like to...
So let me just say this. My chief that I hired when I became mayor, we did a blind poll of the members of law enforcement that were there at that time, 84, which I took those numbers to 104 in 4 years' time. Every member except 4 or 5 of them said the morale in that department had never been worse. So we knew there was a leadership problem then. The guy that I appointed, Joe Caffarelli, him and I had never had a sandwich together when I appointed him. I knew him as a city councilor. I knew him as a good cop. He came from a long family of police officers. and he was the right choice, and you know, I'll stand by that choice all day long. He was a great chief. There was never any scandal like we have right now going on with the police department, news stories coming out about the chief of police. There was none of that when he was here, and the crime statistics showed it. The people showed it because of how admired he was throughout the city. So, you know, for him to say that was a political appointment is just outrageous. Him and I never even had a sandwich together before I appointed him chief. So stop with the lies, tell the truth, and stick to the issue.
Thank you both candidates. We'll move on to the next question. This involves city resources, and the question is for Mr. Keefe. How would your administration plan to support our other departments throughout the city, such as the fire department and DPW?
Thank you. Good question. Well, we just did it. For the last 40 years, the DPW has had a building that was unserviceable to the public. We had employees that had tarps over their businesses, over their equipment, just so they can stay dry from the rain. That's not dignified service. That's not giving them the tools they need to succeed. We invested millions, tens of millions of dollars in new equipment, and now we have a place that just cut the ribbon yesterday to put this equipment, to save our investment, and to give the employees a dignified place to serve our residents. And then our fire department. We're now up to 121 firefighters, 11 new firefighters, three brand new apparatus ordered day one when I got on the job with ARPA money. And those equipments will be delivered in time for the new Point of Pines fire station that hasn't been open since the 90s. We're going to have a Point of Pines fire station that's going to serve the needs of the Riverside and the Beachmont community and the Point of Pines community and the entire beach community for years to come. That's a vacant site that laid idle since the 90s. When you were mayor, you weren't able to do that. I did it right away. And we're going to continue to invest in those departments. And we're going to continue to up that staff. When I became acting mayor, there were 5 open positions in the DPW. My opponent tried to restrict me from hiring. And instead, we got the opinion and we got those employees hired. And they're on the streets every day helping you. That's important to me.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Your response.
Yeah, the Public Works Department stemmed from a motion that was put in 2012 when I was mayor. For some reason, it took 10 or 12 years to get it done. But that doesn't surprise me, because when I built the 3 new Little League fields, it took them 4 years to build a snack bar. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me that it took 12 years to build a public works facility. It's important that we invest in manpower, and my goal will be to take away a lot of the outsourcing that we do within our Public Works Department and bring employees into our Public Works Department so that we can more readily control the projects that need to be done across our city. There's an awful lot we can do if, you know, when we do it in-house. When we outsource, we pay more, and we're at the whim and the mercy of who we contract with. We've got to go out through the public bidding process. It's a long, lengthy process. If we bring these jobs in-house, we can do a lot more, and we can service our residents a lot more than we are right now.
St. Mary's ball fields, beautiful. My kids play there. I've coached there. But you know what? It was a rush job because it was an election year. Okay? And then we had to come back just last year to put drainage in the $7 million park that we invested your money in. We had to go back and put drainage in because every time it rained for more than a day, there was no games. Maybe that's why it took so long to put the snack stand, which we did in-house. And instead of putting the $750,000 block snack stand that you wanted, we built it in-house with our own people and cost a fraction of that. That's what happens when we do it right. The first time, instead of taking the money and going backwards. We're going to continue to invest in our DPW. We're going to continue to invest in our fire department. And we're going to continue to invest in all of our resources throughout our community. Thank you.
Mr. Rizzo, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, you know, when he says a fraction of a cost, it was $50,000 less 4 years later, and that was 4 years that kids, parents, and grandparents had to get into their vehicles and go somewhere if they needed to use the restroom. It's outrageous. There was no reason why it had to take 4 years. As far as the drainage, I don't know. His superintendent right now that was promoted after I left office to the Water and Sewer Department oversaw that job. So I'm not sure why there was a drainage problem. Maybe he can check with him and he can let him know exactly what happened. But as far as I'm concerned, sticking to the issue, how are we going to invest in public services? It will be to stop outsourcing as much as we do, bring services in-house so we can better service our residents, our neighborhoods. There's ways we can streamline an awful lot, and that's why when I'm mayor, we're going to absolutely do that. People will see a palpable difference in the services that are delivered to them, especially in light of the $100 million more this city is spending since I left office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Now we are going to move on to the next part of the debate. So this is going to be the community question round. This section will be a collection of questions that have been submitted directly from members of the community. Each candidate will have an opportunity to respond to the question that's being asked uninterrupted for 2 minutes. So the first question is going to be for Mr. Rizzo. Mr. Rizzo, what would be your first priority upon taking office in January if elected?
My first priority, if elected, is to make sure that our police and fire have the necessary resources that they need to do their jobs. As I said earlier, we have not kept up with our manpower to match the additional growth in our community. So that's going to have to be immediately looked at. My opponent mentioned the Point of Pines Fire Station that Councilor Powers admittedly says he's been talking about for 25 years now. It's finally coming out of the ground. I don't know how long it's going to take to complete, but now that is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity because of all the development that Mr. Keefe and the prior administration have allowed to happen. People in the Point of Pines and the Riverside wake up and looking over them at 291 more units that are going to obviously need servicing. And where is this service going to come from? Right now, our standby ambulance service is deplorable. Unfortunately, we had a 3-month-old at One Carey Circle that was in distress, not breathing, and it took over 30 minutes for an ambulance to show up. That's outrageous, but yet nothing has been done. So they sit back, watch the city grow, but could care less about the services that are provided to those of us that have lived here for a long, long time. It just makes no sense to me. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my arms around the staffing levels of our police, fire, and standby ambulance service and make sure that our residents are adequately protected.
Mr. Keefe, what would be your first priority upon taking office in January if elected?
Well, we have this big hurdle in front of us called the Revere High School project, and that's something that's going to have to be addressed immediately. And I know there's a lot of tension in the room, and I know that a lot of people have different opinions. And we're going to get in with the council, we're going to talk to them, and we're going to make a good decision moving forward. Because we owe it to the citizens of Revere, we owe it to the 7,200 students in our school system to build a state-of-the-art high school and do it rapidly. Councilor Rizzo campaigned in 2019 and said he was going to fast-track a new Revere High School. He didn't show up to one high school building meeting in 3 years. Fast-track? And then he voted against the school funding, potentially costing the city $200 million in school funding from the MSBA. He voted against it. He wanted to fast-track it, another campaign promise that he didn't fulfill. Fast track. And then when we talk about Cataldo ambulance, I agree. They need to be better. We are going to hold them accountable. I haven't taken campaign contributions from the Cataldo family. Have you? Okay, thank you. Thought so.
You're too busy taking them from developers.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, thank you. This question is for Mr. Keefe. This question comes directly from the Revere High School speech and debate team. As mayor, how do you hope to promote free expression and foster debate for all in the city of Revere?
Thank you, Erta. 100%. Your group is unbelievable, the speech and debate team. I've come and talked with you, I've interviewed with you, I've invited you to the council. I even got scorned one point because I was being kind to you in our council meetings and potentially liked a page that you had. And I know that you were making people feel uncomfortable, but sometimes saying what has to be said makes people feel uncomfortable. And if this 16-year-old girl makes you feel uncomfortable, shame on you. They were here to speak, and we let them speak. And that's what it's all about. That's the growth. We have an unbelievable speech and debate team, and we're going to continue to embrace them. We're going to embrace our entire population, all of them, whether they speak English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Vietnamese. We will embrace them all, and we want to have their collective voices heard. My opponent hopes that you shut up, and that's exactly how he treats you, because he discounts you every time you come around. He doesn't include you. You're included in my campaign, you'll be included in my administration, and you're going to be included in the entire future of Revere. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you. And now for Mr. Rizzo. As mayor, how do you hope to promote free expression and foster debate for all in the city of Revere?
Well, again, I'm not sure what he's talking about, that I don't allow free speech. I'm confused. Obviously, he's confused. Look, free speech, is, we're talking about our First Amendment here in the United States of America. Of course, we all have free speech. We have freedom of our own thoughts and opinions. And we have to respect each other's opinions. I've seen far too much over these last several years of people that do not respect each other, and it's led to a lot of dissension and a lot of unnecessary arguments. I think we need to be kinder. If I was to think about a curriculum that I would like to see in the high school, it's one that centers around treating each other with dignity and respect, the way that we all should. When I was mayor, I created what was called the Office of New Revere Residents, because I knew at that time that our city was diversifying. And so I wanted to bring a member in from every corner of the community. We brought in Cambodians, we brought in Vietnamese, we brought in Muslim population, we brought in Hispanics, Latinos, so that we could meet on a monthly basis and share each other's ideas on how we should move our city forward. Unfortunately, when I left office, they disbanded that, and we haven't had anything like that since. So I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm elected again on November 7th, I'm going to reactivate and reinstitute our Office of New Revere Residents, and I'm going to bring people from every corner of the city in so they can be part of any decision going forward that happens in this city. Everybody will have a voice.
To Mr. Rizzo, as Revere is a drive-through city and many roads are the responsibility of the state, what are some of your ideas to help curb the traffic problems we face and better ways we can work with the state?
Yeah, so I spoke with the regional director for Mass Department of Transportation that represents Revere. They're in Arlington. He told me straight out, when I was mayor, my office would call them probably once a week. In 8 years, he can count on one hand the number of phone calls that he has received from City Hall. This has to change. The DOT has major roadways through our city, and we need to work with them to unclog them. My opponent has no solution other than to keep building. And I say, the first step toward digging yourself out of a hole is to stop digging, and that's what we have to do. And so, that being said, I will bring in a full-time traffic professional, somebody in City Hall that, again, we don't have to outsource for all these traffic studies that we do time after time after time, a full-time traffic professional that can help with potentially grant money from the state for automated signalization that can help us. I will absolutely add members to our law enforcement so we can expand our traffic division. Our traffic division consists of 2 members right now. How can 2 members possibly handle the traffic crisis that we have in our city right now? It's impossible. So we need to increase the members of the traffic division. We need to bring in a traffic professional that's going to help us. Unfortunately, we're doing it backwards. We should have done traffic studies before all of this building happened. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do it in reverse. But it can be done, and I'm prepared to do it.
And Mr. Response.
Thank you. Traffic. So I'm going to bring it up. Over the office, and we share a lot of information that was with our former mayors and former mayors and former mayors. And I hate wasting money. But we have things like this, traffic studies, that he bought and never utilized. Maybe it was his friend in Arlington. Maybe the guy needed a job. I don't know. But these are the traffic studies that collect dust in the mayor's office. And I'm not going to sit there and just like mayors have made that decision to take studies and not actually implement them, because the work is really hard. We know that. And there is no one felt solution to fixing our traffic. We are a large cut-through community, and we need to take a really good regional approach. We need to work with our neighboring towns to make sure we impact traffic together. My relationships with Boston, Everett, Lynn, Malden are all strong, and now Chelsea, new administrator in Chelsea. We all have good relationships. Half of them have offered to endorse me, because I will work with them in making sure that we can solve these problems together. We have to take a look at the Sumner Tunnel closure over the summer and take a look at the benefit that we saw, even though we had to go through that growing pain, of what rapid transit meant to our community, what expanded ferry service did for our community, and those are the approaches that we can take in solving some of our traffic. But guess what? We are in Revere. We're a cut-through community. The greatest commerce north of us, south of us, is Boston. It's a wonderful economy. People want to live closer to Revere. People want to get closer to Boston, and people are going to cut through our community. It's just a fact. If you don't think that that's going to happen, you're living in a fantasy world. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. We're going to move on to the next question. This question is for Mr. Keith. Mr. Keith, after the last mayoral election, the world faced a global pandemic. As mayor, in hindsight, how would you have handled the situation?
For me?
Yes.
I'm going to need more than 3 minutes. The last pandemic hit our community really hard. It hit me. It hit my family. It hit our schools. I was in the hospitality industry. I was told I had to stay home. And what did I do the next day? I went with Deb Pesca in the senior center and started a Revere food pantry for free, because I needed something to do too. I needed to get out of the house, and I was going to start crazy. We started that Revere food pantry, and it affected families that were quarantined, seniors that were quarantined. And then it went to everyone in our community that was quarantined and or we wanted to keep home. My opponent wasn't here. He disappeared. He lost his election and disappeared and did nothing for our community. That pantry moved on to adding PPE equipment and making sure we took care of our community. I worked every single day, sacrificing my family, going home, taking showers before I hugged my own kids. And then the schools, what it did to our schools. I was the only elected official in our entire community that fought to reopen our schools because I saw what it was doing to our kids. It really was destroying our kids. And yes, maybe I said it was killing them, but when my friends called me and told me that their kids were trying to hurt themselves, that's killing our kids. Maybe I was a little bit rambunctious, but I started that program with parents, a parents program. I fought against the tide to get our schools open safely, and we did. It took far too long because I was fighting alone, and no one fought with me, except for these parents that I cared for. And like I said, those kids mean the world to me, the seniors and the population that was afflicted, we took care of. I helped and took care of. We inoculated people, and he went to Florida. He took his PPP money from his insurance company and went to Florida, and his family bought homes in Carolina. We took care of Revere. We took care of Revere. He didn't show up. He disappeared for the entire pandemic. Our city's ugliest past, he disappeared, and he'll do it again. Let's send him home.
Mr. Rizzo, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yeah, he's obsessed with Florida for some reason. I have no idea why. I'm sorry. I guess I'll apologize to Mr. Keith for buying a home in Florida back in 2004. I didn't know it was such a major issue for him and his family. As far as the pandemic, as far as the pandemic goes, maybe he doesn't realize it. I was not an elected official at that time. I was suffering through the pandemic with everybody else, along with my family and my father, who was failing at the time. So we were all dealing in our own ways with the pandemic. It was an awful time for our country. It was an awful time for our city. People down at the Jack Satter House, it was an awful thing what happened to them. They confined them for forever down there, and several people died as a result of it. So could we have done a lot of things differently? Yes, but I don't think anybody anybody was prepared for what happened, including on a national level, let alone on a local level. I'm glad my opponent worked at a food bank. That's great. But again, I had things that I was dealing with myself. If you remember, travel was shut down for quite a while. So, traveling to Florida and all this stuff is nonsense. How you take a natural disaster like that and turn it into something for political gain is really despicable. This was a horrible time for our country. It was a horrible time for our city. And, the only thing that we can do now is do the best we can to prepare if it should ever happen again. Thank you.
He just said it.
Thank you.
He just said it. Do I get to rebut?
Thank you.
No
the
rebut?
next question is going to Mr. Rizzo.
Pardon me.
Students have been historically absent from the policy-making system. How do you hope to increase student participation in city government?
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of that question. What was it?
Again, students have been historically absent from the policy-making system. How do you hope to increase student participation in city government?
Well, I would be happy to meet with students to talk about ways that they would like to get involved. I think that's a great thing. Student participation in local government, I think, is a fantastic idea, and I would be wide open to it. It's one of the reasons why I created, along with Dr. Garcia at the time, the JROTC, to build self-esteem for kids, to give kids an outlet on how they could develop leadership skills and how they could proceed forward as positive young adults. So that was just one step going forward. But, when I'm mayor, I would be happy to meet with the student body and talk about ways on how you think. Again, I would listen to you to see how we could work together to give you a voice and to see what role that you might want to play. I'm just going to give you one example. The city won a $50,000 award from Google when I was mayor. It was called Get Your Business Online. And back at that time, I reached out to high school students to help business owners across the city develop websites. At that time, going back to 2013, 2014, there was still a lot of businesses that did not have websites or the wherewithal on how to do it. But of course, kids at the high school did. So I was able to reach out to a bunch of high school students that did amazing work with businesses across the city, as did the JROTC with our Snow Angel program, when they used to go out and help senior citizens and disabled people, helping to shovel out after storms. It was a great combination of bringing students together with adults, whether it was in the business community or in our neighborhoods. And again, I would be all ears, and I would be more than willing to meet with the student body to talk about how you'd like to get more involved in government. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, for Mr. Keith, students have been historically absent from the policymaking system. How do you hope to increase student participation in city government?
Erta, I prove it with my actions. And you serve on the Student Senate, and you presented in front of us on the cell phone policy just recently. And I am all in favor of a stricter cell phone policy, but we need to make sure we have students buy in and educators buy in. And they didn't buy in. So we asked to push it along a little bit further to tighten it up and get your voice. And that's exactly why I voted the way I did, to support you and to support her and to support the rest of the young students in the audience and to support our teachers. That's action. Going to the school committee meetings. As mayor, former Mayor Rizzo showed up to 25% of the meetings, sometimes 50% of the meetings. And when he did show up, he left early. His number one role is to serve as the chair of the school committee, and he didn't show up to those. He didn't participate, and he just said when he wasn't elected, he disappeared. Because every time he gets unelected, he disappeared. He only comes here for your vote. And you can't vote, Erta, so your voice doesn't matter to him. But it matters to me. I've invited the Student Senate into my office. I've met with them. I've brought lunch. We've included them in my group. Please, for a vote, please. These kids mean more to me than any of you over there. Times 10. Thank you very much.
Mr. Keefe, the Wheelabrator came up in the last election. Since there have been more disruptions from the Saugus landfill, what is your stance on the wind waste trash facility? What alternatives would you implement for trash if the Wheelabrator were to shut down?
Thank you. So the last debate, my opponent said he would shut down Wheelabrator. Wheelabrator needs to shut down. But he signed a 10-year contract with Wheelabrator. A 10-year contract that doesn't expire until next year. He says it, but he didn't do it. 10-year contract. Let that sit. With Wheelabrator, not with Capital Waste, with Wheelabrator. When Wheelabrator had this recent explosion, I went down there. We talked, and I said, anytime anything happens, you need to let me know. And I will say, if we do have to mitigate and figure out what we're going to do with that trash, when at some point next year, as the duly elected mayor, I have to sign this contract, Revere is going to have a seat at the table, and Revere will be represented. But I'll never lie to you. I'll never say I'm going to do something and do the opposite. He said he would shut it down, but he signed a 10-year contract with Wheelabrator. I didn't. I don't, like, he really discounts your intelligence, doesn't think we can just go back and look at. We have Google these days, guys. We can find everything. You can't lie anymore, Dan. You can't. Okay? We're not that stupid.
And Mr. Rizzo, if I need to repeat the question?
No, I understand the question completely. And before I do, I just want to, just for the edification of those of you that are here, somehow in one conversation, my attendance went from 25 to 50% of the school committee meetings. It's outrageous, some of the things I'm hearing here. I'm going to give Mr. Keefe a little education, okay? Right now, the trash, when it gets picked up, has to go somewhere, okay? We signed a very good deal with Wheelabrator while I was testifying to shut them down and move it to a location that wasn't jeopardizing the health of people throughout our community. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, okay? The bottom line is, Rosalie Vincent will tell you, Jeff Turco will tell you, these are state representatives that have worked with me on Wheelabrator. And Wheelabrator has been a sore spot for me and many members of our community. You didn't show up to talk about Wheelabrator until an explosion happened, and you had to respond because people in the Pines and the Riverside were upset. So please don't insult their intelligence by you making statements as if somehow you wouldn't have signed a contract to get rid of the trash, unless you had planned on keeping it on the side of the road. That was not an option for me. We had to have the trash picked up and delivered somewhere, and up until today, it's still Wheelabrator, but it should be located somewhere else, not close to residential neighborhoods, and I will continue to fight Wheelabrator until they're moved for the benefit of all members of our community.
He had 4 years. He had 4 years to shut it down. He didn't do it. He didn't do it.
All right, please.
No rebuttal.
I ask the audience, please, everybody in the audience, please allow the candidates to give their remarks. We're going to move on to the next question here. This question is for Mr. Rizzo. Mr. Rizzo, and this ties in with development. There are a lot in the community that feel with all of the development happening, some people feel they're getting priced out of their homes. How do you plan on supporting low-income households and unhoused individuals in Revere in the current climate that we're in?
Well, like I said earlier, the first thing I'll do is focus on commercial growth. Unlike what Mr. Keefe said earlier, when we had our economic development summits, it did not center around housing whatsoever. The Wonderland transit project that he references, he's confusing it with Wonderland Dog Track. They're two different projects. But as to the question, how are we going to help? I would entertain any project dealing, the only project that I will entertain that deals with any type of residential component would be for senior citizen housing and veteran housing. We do have a housing crisis. A lot of people that I have talked to, our most vulnerable appear to me to be our senior citizens. Our seniors, some of them are widows and widowers. They're left with a big house. They can no longer afford to maintain it. And sadly, the city continues to fine and ticket people despite being under these circumstances. It's really deplorable, to see these poor, vulnerable people, whether they're disabled people, people on fixed income, seniors, that are having real issues with staying in their homes. So I think that's something we're going to have to focus on with respect to having more availability for senior citizen housing, more availability, and I know we do have some veteran housing that was just built on Shirley Ave, but I think we could use more. So, it's an issue that we're going to have to put our heads together, but I believe that we can do it, and again, it's going to have to start with commercial growth, no more residential growth. It's proven that it is not helping the taxpayers, it is not helping people stay in their homes, and so going forward, that will be my focus.
Thank you. Mr. Keith, you need to repeat the question?
He talks about it but does not back it up with action. Just recently in front of the City Council, 71 condominiums, home ownership opportunities with over 20% affordability chances for Revere residents, seniors, veterans, and workforce housing. He voted against to waive Community Improvement Trust funds, $80,000, to provide 20 units to Revere residents. $80,000 is not a lot of money. To be able to give someone a home ownership opportunity to be able to live dignified and have no worries about increasing rents. He voted against it. So you know what I did? We took $100,000 out of the Affordable Housing Trust that I helped create, that I served on the board, and we put it into that project, and now that project will go forward, and 21 condominiums will be offered up to Revere residents, seniors, veterans, and workforce housing. That's going to help solve those housing crises for them. But 21 is not going to be enough. We know that. And putting a moratorium up is going to do everything but help affordability. We have to make sure we have smart growth, we have to make sure we incentivize affordability, and we have to make sure that we do things with the money that we do have coming in. The Affordable Housing Trust is going to offer forgiven loans and interest-free loans to residents to gracefully age in their house in place, up to $5,000 or $7,500 to fix their home, to fix their roof, to fix their air conditioning, to fix their heater, so they can age gracefully in their homes. That's going to help our senior residents. I'm putting the action and work. He's doing all the talk because he didn't do it when he was mayor, and he certainly ain't going to do it when he's unelected in 2 months. 2 weeks.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Keith. When filling key senior level positions, do you commit to having a fair and transparent hiring process that evaluates a candidate's qualifications, experience, education, integrity, and key competencies, and not hire someone simply because they supported your campaign?
Is that to me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm doing it right now. Right now. We've had multiple positions open. My opponent tried to stop me from hiring these positions because he thought they were just anointed positions. They thought I was just going to pick someone that I was friends with. We hired the first 5 people. I never met them because I trust my HR process, because I trust my department heads to make good decisions. The only thing I included in the decision making was I said, are they from Revere? I want to make sure we're offering these jobs to Revere residents as often as we possibly can. I let my department heads do their job. I gave them the tools to succeed. They interviewed and hired these people. He was afraid I was going to appoint all my buddies because that's what he does, and that's what he did, and that's what he'll continue to do. I'm going to support my HR systems, and we're going to hire the best and brightest, and that's what we'll continue to do. I'm doing it now, and I'm going to continue to do it for the next 4 years.
Question repeated? Would you like the question repeated?
No. I understand the question. It's ironic because all 5 people that he hired for the Public Works Department that he's talking about all happened just mysteriously. They have stickers on for him in his campaign. So why that's happening, I really don't know.
Thank you.
Again, it's just rhetoric that he's given you here tonight. He's trying to spin you around and make you think that the 4 years that I was mayor, we did absolutely nothing. When the reality is the only thing that him and his predecessor have done is put housing throughout our community. We really invested in our community. We built a new stadium. We built new Little League fields. We built an elementary school. We didn't invest in apartment buildings. We brought in Market Basket by giving them a $1 million tax incentive to spearhead the regrowth of Northgate Shopping Center, which it has. And it's led to not seeing 18-wheelers down there anymore parked, We see people down there shopping, and it's a useful mall right now. He's trying to detract you and distract you from my record, which is one of accomplishment. Their record is one of accepting donations from the biggest developers out there and building apartment buildings. And people are seeing it, and they're going to see it on November 7th as well. None of my hires, I said earlier when he was trying to talk about politicizing the police department, my chief that I appointed did a tremendous job. There was no scandal. You didn't see him on WBUR radio being accused of what the current chief is being accused of, and the prior chief to him. You didn't see that. My chief was an honorable chief, and to say that it was a political appointment really is so far off base. I don't even know what to say about that. So I will always hire the best qualified person and the most qualified for any position that I hire when I'm mayor again.
All right. Mr. Rizzo, if you could describe Revere in one word, what is that word that comes to your mind?
Special. Revere is a special place. We come from all different walks of life. We come from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. We come from many different cultural backgrounds. When I was mayor, my last graduating class, the children of that class represented 50 different countries speaking 50 different languages. Yet, they all got along famously, and they've all gone on to do great things. I still see some of them even today. So Revere is a special place. I've always said our greatest strength lies within our people, and it does. I've seen it in action, and I believe in Revere. Unlike my opponent who just says he believes in Revere, he believes what he believes is what's good for him, not what is good for the people of this city. I've always been on the side of the people.
And same for you, Mr. Keefe. If you could describe Revere in one word, what is that word that comes to your mind?
Revere is beautiful. And yes, I do believe in Revere, and I'm glad that tagline stuck with you, Mr. Rizzo. I'm glad that you appreciate it, because I do. And I don't believe in bringing it down just for my own personal gain. I don't believe in destroying our community just to get a vote. I believe in being honest. But I look out, we see an unbelievable sunset. I look out my backyard, I see a Boston skyline. I take my dog to the beach, and I enjoy it very much, just like most of you. Just like we enjoy our community. It is a beautiful community. It's a beautiful community with beautiful people. Unbelievable people with unbelievable upside. And we're going to continue to believe in our community. We're going to continue to do great things with each other. And yes, politics tends to bring out the worst. But we're going to continue to bring it back together and make this beautiful community welcoming to everybody. My opponent says, why should we open up the doors and welcome everybody? We have to. They're human beings. I'm a human being. Have compassion. Use your heart. We'll welcome everybody in. You're going to come into our beautiful community, and we're going to give you a big hug. I love Revere, I believe in Revere, and thank you, Mr. Rizzo, for believing in Revere as well.
Thank you. And the last question of this section is for Mr. Keefe. Will each candidate pledge tonight that whoever wins, then the other will not only congratulate, but give full support to the new administration to unify and not divide Revere? Yes.
Pledge 100%. Everyone. It's going to be a big tent, and everyone's welcome. Every single one of you. All of you are welcome. But we talk about what happens after the election, and I will make sure that we welcome everyone back in, and we talk positively, and we move forward together. But that didn't happen when Dan Rizzo lost the last time. When he was rejected, he didn't give so much as a piece of paper. He didn't even allow for a transition. He held up the election because every time he loses, every time, the 2 times he lost in the casino and the time that he lost, the 2 more times he was rejected as mayor, he caused a stir and didn't hand over the keys like he should and offered a dual transition. He didn't do it. So thankfully, we won't have to worry about that in 2 weeks. But I will welcome everyone in because Revere is beautiful, and we're going to welcome you all in. Thank you. And I'll congratulate him as well.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Rizzo.
I will support the community as I always have. You know, not going through a transition, I don't even know what that means. Again, I don't know what he's talking about when there was no transition. When I'm elected, I'm going to put a transition team in place that will go into City Hall, meet with our department heads, and plan a path forward. That's what a transition team is. Mr. Keefe hasn't had to do that yet because after he, you know, when he took office, upon the, you know, in the absence of the former mayor, he didn't have to put together a transition team. So I wouldn't expect him to understand how that works. But you, when you're elected mayor, when you're actually elected, you put a transition team together and you plan a path forward so you have something to go with the minute that you take charge in January. So that would be my plan. You know, in terms of supporting my opponent, should the election not go my way, I will do everything I can to work to make Revere a great place, the great place that I know that it is.
Okay, thank you both. So that's going to conclude the second round of questions. We are just left now with closing statements by each candidate. Candidate Keith won the coin toss. Mr. Rizzo, your closing statement. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I believe deep in my soul that this is one of the most consequential elections that this city has ever seen. It will determine the future of our community with regards to development, education, and public safety. My positions on all of these very important parts of municipal government are no secret. I'm for a hard stop on large-scale apartment buildings with a focus on attracting quality commercial development that makes sense. I'm committed to returning our school system to top-tier status, utilizing my role as chairman of the school committee in conjunction with the members. And I am for law and order to protect our families and neighborhoods. The days of violence on our streets and in our schools, having a reactive police department as opposed to a proactive one, and a void of trusted leadership will be over. My opponent is being supported vigorously by the former mayor, and that should be able to tell you of what direction he's headed in. If you want the status quo, he's your guy. So you have a choice. We can continue down the path that we've been on, or you can elect a mayor who's committed to living here in Revere, a mayor who doesn't look at the job as a stepping stone to something bigger. Yes, we can choose a different path, a path that respects residents' rights to live a peaceful, happy, and productive life. Thank you for the tremendous opportunity that you've given me to serve our community for so many years, and I ask you once again for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you. And thank you again to the Student Senate, Revere TV, the Revere Journal, the Chamber of Commerce, and of course our audience here and the viewing audience. Thank you for putting this together tonight. During the past 6 months, you've welcomed me into your homes, front porches, and into your backyards. You've shared your concerns and have shared your ideas. You've let me know what you expect from me and how Revere should be best served. I've listened, and you have helped me shape my vision for Revere's future. Every election comes down to a choice of which candidate shares your ideas, expectations, and attitude. Your choice decides our city's path forward. Let's continue to choose with our heads in our hearts and move forward together. One direction will use the political fear-mongering of the past, regurgitating any and all incidents without any shred of dignified service, and cater to only a narrow-minded audience of bigotry and hate. Or you have a choice to move forward. A choice to send a message promoting a youthful resurgence to Revere, filled with endless opportunities, highlighting our strengths while collectively solving our differences. The choice is clear. My leadership over the last 8 years in service to our community as an elected official has been consistent, welcoming, and refreshing to everyone who calls Revere home, and to all of those who wish to be part of Revere moving forward. Our seniors, our youth, our families, and our visitors. Revere is on the brink of greatness. Our results are proven, and the possibilities are endless. With the right leadership, we can move mountains, and together, I intend on doing just that. So let's send a clear message on November 7th. I ask for your support, and let's memorialize an end date to my opponent's monument of failure and cast your ballot for progress, positivity, and opportunity for all. And in closing, I believe in Revere, and I believe in the best of Revere, and I ask for you to believe too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. This is going to conclude our program tonight. We want to thank the candidates and all of our city partners who made tonight possible. Remember to vote on November 7th. Good night.
Great job.